Hi guys, welcome to Sudeep's, and I hope each and every one of you are doing really good. Now this is DECODE Mains 2025, where for the first time in the country, you and I are going to write answers together for the UPSC Mains 2025 GS papers. This video mainly deals with the section of GS2 paper, that is Social Justice and Governance. Now, why should you write the answers for Social Justice and Governance along with me is, one, you will understand what is the trends and thematics that you have to prepare for the upcoming UPSC Mains 2026. The second, you will understand the keywords and the keyword approach to bring the language of social justice, especially in this section, to get maximum marks. And the third and the most important thing is how to decipher the question, how to break the question, address the demands and put it back all together. Now, if you have to develop this competency, you have to make sure that you write the answers along with me. Many people also have the doubt of how to prepare notes for social justice and governance because it is very dynamic, and even for that, make sure that you watch the video. I will address even the points of how to prepare notes on different thematics, especially in the section of social justice and governance. And finally, few people had messaged me telling that according to the timetable, the class has been a little delayed. But one thing why I am delaying the classes is because I am just waiting for the classes that I have uploaded to reach 1K views and 100 likes. That is the least minimum that I can expect for all the hard work that I have put in, and that is why I am waiting until it reaches 1K views at least and 100 likes, and only then I am releasing the next video, because at least then I can be satisfied that my hard work has really been respected. That is the least amount of respect that I can expect for the amount of hard work that I put in for this DECODE Mains 2025. That is why I am waiting till it reaches that milestone, and only then I am trying to release the next video. So please, if you sincerely think that this is helping you, make sure that you share this video with as many friends as possible. And that is one final request I would want my student community, and that is to please share this video with as many people, communities, forums that you people are connected with. Alright guys, so then let us start off with the social justice and governance. I hope you people have the pen and paper with you and you start writing along with me. Enjoy the classes guys. I hope that it will be helpful in preparing for your UPSC Mains 2026. Hi guys, welcome to this initiative of DECODE Mains 2025, where for the first time in India, we are trying to learn the previous year question of UPSC one by one, question by question, by writing the answers together. So I hope you are enjoying it, and I hope you are making good use of it. Now, this video is mainly to discuss about social justice and governance. Social justice and governance is a section that is asked in UPSC Mains GS2 paper, and this carries a very important weightage because around 75 marks comes directly from social justice and governance. Now, why is it important is because it is relatively easy compared to the polity section, and it is very scoring, and a student to get good marks in GS2 has to get a good grip in social justice and governance. Now, in this video, not only will we try to understand the evolving trends in social justice and governance, but we will go question by question and write the answers to understand the language that you have to bring in this particular section, and how to structure the answer, and more importantly, what should be the approach for different types of questions within social justice and governance. Very important it is. So I hope you have a pen with you and you start writing along with me. Now, before we start off with writing every question one by one in detail, we have to first understand the importance of social justice and governance. Then we have to understand what is the important thematics, recurring themes that comes in social justice and governance, because it is the recurring themes that will give you an idea how to prepare for the upcoming Mains 2026. And thirdly, you should then understand how to prepare for social justice and governance. And fourthly, you should learn how to write answers in social justice and governance. So this is what we are going to do step by step. Alright, now in social justice and governance, you usually get 6 questions. The questions will be relatively easy, and the questions will be application based. It will not be direct questions. So know that very well. Okay. So if you get 6 questions, you will have 3 into 10 marker and 3 into 15 marker. Okay. It usually will be question 6, question 7, question 8, question 16, question 17 and question 18. But this year, what they have done, question 18 they have put as polity question, and they have made question 15 as social justice and governance. Okay, so they have changed that part of the question. So don't actually blindly go with the question numbers. It is fine. But overall, the weightage has remained the same. That is, they are asking 6 questions. That is 3 10 markers and 3 into 15 markers. So overall, you get 75 marks from social justice and governance. Again, I'm telling you, the social justice and governance is more application based. They are more application based question. They are not going to ask you what do you mean by empowerment. They are not going to ask you what is equity. They are not going to ask you any direct questions. They are going to ask you the application of what you understand by social justice, application of what you understand by governance. And whenever they ask you application based question, the most important and go-to approach to writing answers is the keywords approach. I teach the keywords approach to all my students in advanced means masterclass, but today, by the time we do the entire social justice and governance, you will understand what exactly is the keywords approach and how to write that keywords approach to get maximum marks in social justice and governance. Alright, now after understanding the importance of social justice and governance, you have to understand what are the recurring themes of social justice and governance, because it is those themes that you have to build your content upon. So let us look at the themes. So the themes that you should be preparing for social justice and governance are as follows. The first is poverty. The next is vulnerable sections. Vulnerable sections. The third is women. Women is a very important, thematic where the question always comes. The next is e-governance. The next is citizens charter. Citizens charter. The next is RTI. The next is education, healthcare, human development, then comes planning, then comes the last one and very, very important is developmental institutions. Developmental institutions. Now, when I say developmental institutions, it means civil society organizations, it means NGOs, it means local communities, it means public trust. Okay, so all this together is what is known as developmental institutions. It also means self-help groups, it also means farmer producer organizations. Developmental institutions are institutions that are placed between government and citizens. So those developmental institutions that help complement the role of the government and help in voicing the concern of the citizen and making sure the entire democratic governance is working effectively, that is very, very important. Okay, that is the main function of these developmental institutions. Again, you have to be very, very thorough with this. Okay, and the last one is civil services or civil servants. Okay, so these are the important thematics where you should have worked upon and you should have created a proper notes. Okay, now when I tell notes, how to prepare the notes in society, one very important thing that you should remember is, look at this, you should have good amount of programs. When I say programs, if I take an example of poverty, you should have important 3 programs for poverty, and when you see the 3 programs, you should know the status of the program, the achievement of the program, and the next is the challenges in that program. So this is how you have to work on. So the first important thing that you have to always put in your notes, if you take any thematic, I'm just giving you inside the thematic what you should have. Okay, the first thing that you should have is programs. Why programs? Is because in social justice and governance, you cannot write societal answers. You cannot talk societal perspective of poverty. You have to talk government and governance perspective of poverty. Government and governance perspective of poverty can be written by using the government programs. So you should always bring programs. The second one is you should try to bring reports. Try to collect reports, and reports will always give you the facts that are credible in nature. Instead of citing some general statements, you can always cite credible facts by compiling a lot of reports. It can be CAG report, it can be ARC report, it can be RBI report. So whatever it is, you need to collect reports, but don't overdo it. Again, you have to know 2 good fact and 2 challenging fact. That's all. That is more than enough. For example, in multidimensional poverty index released by NITI Aayog, in the last 1 decade, we have reduced our poverty levels from 29% to 11%. See, that can be used as a good thing. That can also be used as a bad thing. I can also state that in India, even today, multidimensional poverty hovers around 11%. See, I can use it in however way I want to. So it really doesn't matter that you dump a lot of facts. You should just use some facts. So that facts are important and you need to collect those facts in the form of reports. And look at this. Don't try to sit one day and collect all the facts. It doesn't go. You should always prepare notes thematically. You should not try to collect all the facts one day, all the programs one day. It doesn't work like that. You have to prepare your notes thematically. That is, you have to sit and prepare on poverty. You have to sit and prepare on vulnerable sections. You have to sit and prepare on women. You have to sit and prepare on CSOs, that is civil society organizations. So like that, you have to always sit and prepare for social justice and governance thematically. That is very, very important. Okay. So the first is programs. The second is reports or facts. Okay. The third important thing that you need to collect is examples. For example, if you take about civil society organizations, so in civil society organizations, there are different types. So which are working in environment, you have to collect. Which are working with respect to vulnerable sections, you have to collect. Which are working with respect to legislative reforms. With respect to legislative reforms, you have to collect. So like that, you have to collect different examples of different thematics. Alright. So for example, let us say that poverty. In poverty, how to correct example is, let us say that in some state they have created some type of innovation to reduce poverty. So that case study can be brought as an example. So examples should be collected under any circumstances, otherwise your answers will become generic. Okay, so these are the three things that you should always focus when you are creating notes. Keep this in your mind. Now, along with these three things, the next comes the very, very important thing. That is the fourth one, and that is keywords. Okay, now you should ask me, how should I collect this keyword? You cannot collect the keywords just by looking at something or researching something. You can collect keywords by writing tests and then looking at the synopsis. For example, I'll give you this year's question only. Let us say that they're asking you how social capital will help in women empowerment. Okay, if social capital helps in women empowerment, how do you substantiate? I'll use just three keywords. Okay, see, for example, if they're asking me social capital and they're asking me how social capital can help in empowerment of women, see, I'll use three keywords. The first keyword is political empowerment. The second keyword is economic empowerment. The third keyword is social empowerment. Look at this. I just have to substantiate the points here. That's all I have to do. Alright. Now, how do I get these keywords is, when I am writing a lot of answers, when I generate dimensions there, those dimensions I will segregate and keep always. That is why after you write the test, you should always take the keywords that you have used in the test. Or let us say that you couldn't use any keywords, then go to the synopsis and check what keywords they have used. Always take those keywords and keep it with you. These keywords should become a data bank, and these keywords should be internalized. Whenever they ask you any question on self-help group or whenever they ask you any question on women, these keywords should come there in your answers. That is what is known as keywords approach. So today, when we are completing all the 6 questions of 2025 means social justice and governance, you will have a plethora of keywords with you that you can take and use it in your future mock tests also. But that should not be the end of it. You should learn the skill of collecting those keywords for your future means, that is UPSC means 2026. Alright, so to come back to this particular discussion, you understood the importance of social justice and governance in the paper GS2. Next, you understood how to approach the social justice and governance, that is, what is the thematics and how to make notes along the thematics. So I hope you have now understood this. But one thing you should never forget is writing a lot of tests, because at the end of the day, if you want to get good marks, keyword approach is your go-to. All my students of Advanced Mains Masterclass have mastered this. That is why for them, society and social justice and governance is a piece of cake. Let them ask any question in ethics, society and social justice and governance. They are going to ace it because they have mastered this art of keywords and application of keywords in their answers. So I hope by the end of this discussion, you would also have mastered the art of keywords approach, and I hope that you will implement that in your future exams. Okay. So now proceeding to the analysis of this year's paper. So if I take this year's 2025 GS2 paper, and if I have to talk about social justice and governance, as I've already told you, 6 questions have been asked. Okay. Now they have asked on predictable lines. It is not that they have somehow asked something that we have not predicted. Why I say predictable lines is they always overlap with the thematics. Okay. So one question has come on e-governance. Okay. Again, the same thing they have asked. The next is social capital. Okay. They have asked social capital and how it helps in women empowerment as well as gender equity. Women empowerment and gender equity. Again, as I told you, women plays a very, very important role. So women, the question has come. The third question that they have asked is how civil society organizations are perceived as anti-state. Okay. So here obviously you should divide. So here obviously you should defend that they are not anti-state, but they are perceived as such. Why you should tell, and then they should tell the significance of it. We will discuss how to structure it. Anyways, these are the 3 10 markers that was asked. Now in the 15 markers, the first question in the 15 markers was, they asked about environmental pressure groups. They have asked about environmental pressure groups. The next question that they have asked is paradox of poverty. Paradox of poverty. The 6th question that they have asked is the disadvantage of top-down approach. They have given it in a very complicated way, but overall, they're just asking you what are the disadvantages of top-down approach. So that is as simple as it. Okay. So these are the 15 markers that they have asked. Again, as you can see, overall, it is more or less lying on the thematics that we actually prepare in social justice and governance. So there is nothing new to it. Okay. One more thing is, this time what they have done in developmental institutions. Okay. This time within developmental institutions, look at this. They have asked 2 questions. One question they have asked on civil society organizations, and the second question they have asked on environmental pressure groups. Okay. So instead of broadly asking about CSOs, that is civil society organizations or self-help groups, they have gone a little bit more specific and they're asking about how environmental pressure groups are helping or significant. So that is one thing that you can take. So overall, if we take the questions, not much of any change that you can assess. It matches with overall thematics that we usually prepare. So if you have practiced a lot of mock tests and if you understand how to use keywords, I think that you could get good marks if you have written good answers. Provided you should always push in programs, you should always push in facts through reports, and thirdly, you should always push in examples. So these 3 will make your answers language seem like social justice and governance. Otherwise, it becomes a very generic answer. Okay, so with that, this is the overall trend of 2025 UPSC. So now let us just take, before I dwell into every question in detail and we start writing the answer and you start writing along with me, we will just go question by question and then we will discuss. Let us go question by question and just we will discuss how simple the keyword approach is. Because I want you people to learn the keyword approach, look at this. So you have the 6th question. So in the 6th question, look at this. Women's social capital complements empowerment and advances gender equity. Explain. Okay. So we will discuss the schematic and structuring of this answer in a few minutes. But in this particular question, what are the keywords to be used? Now see, women's social capital complements empowerment. So here you have to substantiate this, correct? So what type of empowerment will social capital help? So it will help, as I've already told you, political empowerment, social empowerment, economic empowerment, technological empowerment, digital empowerment. Look at this. There can be so many empowerments. This is what are the keywords. Now, if they ask you women's social capital, how does it advance gender equity? Here also you should have keywords. So what are the keywords? 1, access to resources. Second, voice in decision making. Third one, safety and dignity. Fourth one, equity in economic opportunities. Equity in economic opportunities. Look at this. So if I just elaborate these keywords, it automatically creates a very good answer and the language will be in conformance with the social justice and governance section. So that is what is very, very important. Now, how to elaborate this? This elaboration requires you to have facts, examples, case studies, programs, etc. Okay, so that is what this comes from your notes. Okay, so I hope you are able to understand this. So this is about the 6th question. Let us go to all the question and just discuss, touch upon the keywords that can be brought about for you to get familiarized with this concept of keyword approach. Okay, so in the 7th question, if I take the 7th question, look at this. E-governance projects have a built-in bias towards technology and back-end integration than user-centric designs. Okay, so they are giving you 2 variables. They are asking you, it is inclined towards one variable. However, it should have been inclined towards another variable. That's all they're asking. Okay, so this is bad and this is good. So you have to bring around 5 keywords here and 5 keywords here. Your answer is more or less done. That is how simple the answers in social justice and governance is. Now, in this part, the bad part, that is the e-governance built with bias towards technology, I'm going to talk about why is it bad. Because language barriers. The second one is digital divide. The third one is lack of user simplistic interface. The fourth one is lack of grievance redressal. Lack of grievance redressal. Look at this. So these are the 4 keywords that I'm going to put in the part of the answer where I substantiate how e-governance is inclined towards technology integration. okay, or inclined towards, or it is biased towards technology and back-end integration. Now in the good part, that is how e-technology is necessary to have user-centric designs, here I'm going to talk about how it helps in creates inclusivity, how it helps in balancing efficiency with the equity. The third one is how it helps in feedback integration, and the fourth one is how it accommodates diversity. It accommodates diversity. Now see, these are all keywords that I would have practiced before, and I'm just using the keywords and elaborating the answer. So this is how in the seventh answer, or in the seventh question, I would like to structure the answer. Okay. So now let us look at the eighth one. So in the eighth question, as you can see, civil society organizations are often perceived as being more anti-state actors than non-state actors. Do you agree? They're asking your opinion. Obviously, you should not agree, and you should tell that there is just a perception. Okay, and why is there that perception? You have to substantiate. Obviously, we'll discuss all that in the next part. However, what are the few keywords that you can bring in this answer? Here, the first part is why is there that perception? Because they always advocate reforms and changes. The second is they always demand accountability. They always demand accountability. The third is they always voice concerns. They always voice concerns. And the fourth is funding, especially foreign funding. Especially foreign funding. That is why that perception is there. Now look at this. These are all keywords that I am just practiced even before writing this particular mock test. Okay, so I'll just put those keywords. Now this perception is there, but you should also say they are not anti-state. They are not anti-state. They are non-state actors. They are not anti-state, they are non-state actors. Now here you have to substantiate, you have to bring some points. For example, keywords, look at this, democratic role, elaborate this. The next is they help in service delivery, so elaborate this. The third one is they help in welfare support to the government, welfare support. The fourth one is they help in partnering with the state. They help in partnering with the state. So basically, you should substantiate at the end by telling that between the government, if there is government and then if there is citizens, the space that is filled between them is civil society organizations. So they are non-state actors that are necessary to make our democracy, vibrant, responsive, and effective. Vibrant, responsive, and effective. So this is overall how you have to finish the answer. Look at this. We have discussed the entire answer by learning the keywords. This is how you have to structure it. Alright. So this is the 3 10 markers. Now let us just briefly look into the 3 15 markers. So the 15th marker, the 15th question is, let me read it out. What are the environmental pressure groups? Discuss their role in raising awareness, influencing policies, and advocating for environmental protection in India. Okay. So look at this. In this question, what are the keywords that you can bring? First of all, the dimensions they have only given. Look at this. There are 3 dimensions here. You have to talk about the environmental pressure groups, and you have to talk in 3 dimensions which they have only given. How does it help in awareness? How does it help in influencing policies? And lastly, how does it help in advocating environmental protection? Okay, so everywhere, if I can bring 3 keywords, more or less it will be done. For example, in awareness, if you can talk about mass mobilization. The second one is information dissemination. The third one is you can talk about media campaigns. Look at this. These are the 3 keywords that I'll bring in awareness. Then influencing policy. I can talk about policy support. The second, I can talk about legislative reforms. Okay. Next, in advocating environmental protection, I can talk about influencing judicial outcomes. The second one is you can talk about filing PILs, public interest litigations. MC Mehta case, very, very important. From 1980 to 2000, MC Mehta has helped in conservation of Ganga. He has helped in the Taj trapezium protection. So all these things are very, very important that you can bring. That's why I told you examples and collecting examples, which is very important when you are making notes. Okay, you can always use that examples and facts in these answers. if you have keywords, you can use that examples and facts in your notes into this particular answer very, very easily. Okay, provided you have a very good hold over your keywords. Now look at this. I have used just keywords. I'll just go on elaborating these keywords in the answer and it will create a very, very good structure in the answer. All right, let us look at the next 15 marker. The next 15 marker is even more easy. Very, very easy it is. Look at this. Inequality in the ownership pattern of resources is one of the major causes of poverty. Okay, in this context, discuss the paradox of poverty. So basically, they have already given the definition of the paradox of poverty in India. You don't have to think anything outside. What is paradox of poverty? Paradox of poverty is inequality in the ownership pattern. Okay, that itself, inequality in the ownership pattern of the resources in India itself is the paradox of poverty. So you only have to keep on substantiating why that paradox exists and how to overcome that poverty. That's all you have to do. Again, look at this. So I will take paradox of poverty. Okay, here I will talk about the economy of India. The economy of India. So here I will talk about how agri contributes to 45% of the workforce, but it is contributing only 18% of the GDP. So overall, this year itself is the inequality that exists. So like this, I am only talking about the keywords now. Okay. So first I will talk about the economy of India. Then I will talk about agricultural paradox. I will talk about agricultural paradox. Okay, so agricultural paradox is how 85% of the farmers in India are small and marginal, but how they hold very less operational holdings of less than 40%. So that is the paradox there. The next I'll talk about, you can talk many, energy paradox. Okay, then you can talk about skill paradox. Okay, nutritional paradox. So what is nutritional paradox? Nutritional paradox is even though India is one of the largest producers of rice, wheat, milk, fruits, vegetables, India also has the highest rate of stunting, wasting and malnourishment. Look at this. This is the nutritional paradox. The next is the resource curse. The resource curse of especially the mineral rich states. For example, Jharkhand, Odisha and Chhattisgarh. So that is also something that you can bring. There are so many. The next is the digital exclusion. The next is financial exclusion. Here you have to tell how fintech companies are coming up, but still many women in India do not have bank account. That is the paradox you have to talk here, financial exclusion. Then you have to talk about credit exclusion. In credit exclusion, we can say how MSMEs, especially small and micro enterprises, are still not getting access to formal credit, whereas India's credit growth is actually in fact increasing in the last 1 decade. So this is the paradox that you have to talk about that. So look at this. These are some of the keywords that you can bring to substantiate the paradox of poverty. Now the second part is how to overcome. Again, keywords. Okay. The first is land reforms. The second is financial inclusion. The third is bottom-up approach to planning. Okay. The fourth is skilling. And the fifth is community ownership and participation. Community ownership and participation. Look at this. This completes the entire answer if you know the keywords very well. Alright, let us look at the last question of social justice and governance and how to use the keywords there. So the last question is, let me read out the question. The 17th one is, in contemporary development models, decision-making and problem-solving responsibilities are not located close to the source of the information and execution, defeating the objectives of development. Critically evaluate. Okay, basically, in very simple language, they are telling what are the disadvantages of top-down approach. Okay, and why should we take up bottom-up approach? Okay, so this is all they are asking. So under top-down approach, you have to write 5 keywords. Under bottom-up approach, why it is important you have to write 5 keywords, the answer is done. For example, let us see the first in top-down approach. If we have to write the negatives here, okay, we have to write the negatives. So you can say one size fits all approach, which is not beneficial for a country having high diversity. Okay. Second one, it has a lot of exclusion and inclusion errors. Exclusion and inclusion errors. The third is it results in alienation of people. Alienation of people. The fourth one is it has slower problem solving capacity due to hierarchy. The next one, the fifth is weak accountability. Weak accountability. Look at this. These are the 5 keywords that I'll use here. Now, why is bottom-up approach important? So first you will tell it will help in efficiency. Second, it will help in responsiveness. Third, it will help in bringing inclusive growth or development. The fourth, you will help in it will make democracy more participatory. Or the fifth, you can say it will enhance accountability. Look at this. That's all. Your answer is done. So this is all the answer writing in social justice and governance is. That is why practice writing a lot of answers and practice writing using the keywords. Always make sure that once you write the test, collect those keywords and you keep using those keywords in the future tests. So that is the only trick how to go about in social justice and governance. Alright guys, now let us go into individual questions. Look at the question, understand the schematic and the structuring of that question and start writing the answer. Now write along with me to understand the nature of how you have to bring the language in this particular paper and how to create a good answer with minimal content. So I hope you are ready for it. So let us start off then. So these are the 6 questions that we will be dealing with. So one by one we will start writing answers for everyone. So I hope that you people are also ready and you people are also as excited as me. So let us start off then. So the first question is the 6th one in the question paper of GS2. So that is women's social capital complements empowerment and advances gender equity. Explain. Okay, so let us start with the schematic. So in the schematic is always important to structure the answer. As you keep writing a lot of answers, the schema will happen in your mind itself. You don't have to write it separately. But when you're starting out writing mains answers, always write the schematic separately so that you structure the answer in an ordered manner. Okay, so in the schema you can tell the introduction is I will talk about what is social capital and how is this social capital important for women. This is what I'll address first. The second, in the body, since they've asked 2 things, I'll say how social capital complements empowerment. In the second part, I'll tell how social capital complements gender equity. Okay, and finally, in the conclusion, I'll talk something about positive of social capital. Okay, so this is the overall answer. Very simple it is. So let us start off writing. So let us start off with the introduction. In the introduction, let us try to define what is social capital. So you can define social capital. Social capital refers to the networks, norms, trust and relationships among people that enable them to work collectively for mutual benefit. So I've defined what is social capital. Now in the next paragraph, let us link the social capital to how it helps women. A small paragraph. So in the next paragraph you can say for women these networks in the form of cooperatives and self-help groups converts individual capability into collective power. Okay, so I have given the definition of social capital and then I have just linked the social capital to how it is important for women. Okay, so now in the next, let us jump to the body of the question. In the body, first let us talk about how social capital complements empowerment. So here you can say social capital and women empowerment. The first is political empowerment. So here you can elaborate and say that SHGs and collectives act as nurseries for women leaders. These collectives have enabled women to contest in panchayat elections post 73rd amendment. amendment. Okay, so this is the first one. The second one. The second is you can talk about social empowerment. Talk about social empowerment. Here you can elaborate. Women's groups create safe spaces to discuss women specific issues such as domestic violence, child marriage or health issues. Example, Nai Chetna campaign using SHGs to tackle gender-based violence. Okay, Nai Chetna. All right. So this is social empowerment. The third one is economic empowerment. So in economic empowerment, you can say SHG bank linkage program enhanced financial inclusion and mobilized savings. Example, Lakpati Didi campaign allowed 3 crore women to earn 1 lakh rupees annually. 3 crore women earn 1 lakh rupees annually. So this is the first part of the body where we are trying to explain how social capital will help in empowerment. Let us go to the second part. The second part is, you can say, how social capital will enhance gender equity. Here, just as one paragraph you can write, what is gender equity according to you? Gender equity is fairness in access and outcomes, not mere sameness. Okay, now you can start by telling 1. Access to public resources. So here you can say an SHG in Bihar named Jivika monitors MGNREGA program and demands timely wage payments, ensuring rural poor women are not excluded. Okay. The second is voice in decision making. So here you can say Kutumbashri federations in Kerala have influenced gram panchayats to increase budgeting in sanitation and women's welfare. Okay, this is the second one. The next is the third one, safety and dignity. So here you can say in Madhya Pradesh, SHG led Mahila police volunteers assist survivors in getting legal help. So this is the third one. The fourth one is equity in economic opportunities. Here you can elaborate by telling collective negotiation in dairy cooperatives. cooperatives ensures women receive fairer returns. Ensures women receive fairer returns. Okay, so this is the two parts that we have addressed. Finally, let us go to the conclusion. All right, so in the conclusion we can write that women's social capital across different domains such as finance, market, digital, care, safety must be institutionalized so that collective strength becomes structural equity. In India. Okay, so the keyword here is collective strength, structural equity, institutionalized. Okay, so these networks, if institutionalized, will help structurally to overcome any type of gaps that are present, especially with respect to gender in India. Okay, so this is how we can conclude this answer. So this completes the sixth one. Let us move on to the next question. All right, we are looking at the seventh question now. So in the seventh question, let me first read it out. E-governance projects have a built-in bias towards technology and backend integration than user-centric designs. Examine. Okay, let us create the schema. The schema is, first I'll define what is e-governance, and then I will link that e-governance to whatever they are trying to tell. That is how it is inclined towards, or how it is biased towards technology and backend integration. So that is one link I'll write. So after writing this, I'll go to the body. So in the body, I'll talk about how e-governance is more biased towards technology and backend integration. So here I'll substantiate this. Then I'll talk for the need for user-centric designs. Okay, and then I'll create a conclusion of a way forward. Okay, so this is overall going to be my schema or the structuring. All right, let us start right to it. So in the introduction, we can define what is e-governance. E-governance in India aims to transform the governance landscape by the use of ICT as per the National E-Governance Plan 2006 and Digital India 2015. Look at this. I've already practiced this definition, so this definition can be easily written. Okay. Now, the second para, you have to link that particular context given in the question. So, there you can write, in the second para, you can write, while backend integration as streamlined efficiency and data management, the citizens have faced lags and accessibility concerns. So this is how two paragraphs I'm trying to introduce. Now let us jump to the body. Now the subheading is e-governance bias towards technology and backend. Okay, so here first I will put a box and write a case study. A case study that has happened in Jharkhand. This is a true case study. Look at this. Here you can elaborate. In Ranchi, biometric authentication for PDS users via ePOS machines was introduced to prevent fraud. However, roughly 52% of ration card holders ration card holders managed to successfully obtain their food entitlements. This reflects widespread exclusion due to biometric failures. Okay, so this is the case study. Now you should not be very critical of the government policies. However, this is a true event that has happened very recently, and hence you can definitely quote it. If there's a real case study that has happened, you can definitely quote it. Okay, so this is the case study I have quoted under how the e-governance bias happens towards technology and backend. Now let me give a little dimensions. So here, now write the first point. The first point is welfare delivery system. So here you can elaborate by telling that backend integration with PDS, MGN Rega and DBT has improved targeting, full stop, but authentication failures has led to exclusion of genuine beneficiaries. Okay, the second one you can say is strong architecture but weak accessibility. Here you can say the GS2 network as a strong architecture of multiple tax systems, yet SMEs and small traders struggle with complex filing requirements, lack of multilingual support, making them more dependent on the intermediaries. Okay, third one, strong focus on databases, neglecting customers' grievances. Okay, elaborate here. You can say program such as digital land record modernization program integrates land record databases successfully, but it fails to provide a simple interface for rural citizens, and is also poor in grievance redressal. So this completes the first part. The second part is, you can give this heading as step towards user-centric designs. So here you can write the first one is inclusive design, multilingual, voice enabled and mobile first interface. Okay, example, UMANG app consolidates 1,000+ services on multilingual mobile first interface. Okay, so this is the first one. The second one is assisted or assistance. Here you can say common service centers. Common service centers provide assisted access. Provide assisted access in villages. In villages, bridging illiteracy and connectivity gaps. Bridging illiteracy and connectivity gaps. So this is with respect to assistance. The third one is feedback integration. The third one is feedback integration. So you can elaborate here. User experiences are audited. User experiences are audited and corrections are made to improve accessibility and usability. Accessibility and usability. Okay, so this is the third one. The fourth one is balancing efficiency with empathy. Balancing efficiency with empathy. Here you can say technology should not replace human touch in governance. Technology should not replace human touch in governance. So these are the 4 points that I could write under step towards user-centric designs. Now again, whatever we are writing, you already would have prepared the notes in e-governance. You are going to just restructure the entire sentence to match the demand of the question. That's all you are going to do. Okay. So we have written the answer. So let us conclude it. So in the conclusion, you can say sustainable e-governance model. Sustainable e-governance models should adopt user first designs which otherwise will risk deepening digital divide in India. Will risk deepening digital divide in India. So this is how you can conclude the answer. So I hope it was easy and I hope you are learning the keywords. So you are learning all the keywords that I'm using: balancing efficiency and empathy, feedback integration, assistance, inclusive designs, okay, focusing on databases, strong architecture, welfare delivery system. These are all keywords that I would have already made notes of. If I take e-governance, I'll have a set of keywords for negatives or challenges. I'll have a set of keywords for positives. So I'll play around with those keywords to always structure the answer. So this is how you have to write the answer in social justice and governance. I hope you're learning and I hope you're writing the answers along with me. Alright, now let us look at the 8th question. The 8th question is as follows. Civil society organizations are often perceived as being more anti-state actors than non-state actors. Do you agree? Justify. Okay, obviously let's create a schema. So in the schema, first I'll talk about what are civil society organizations. The second, I'll talk about why are they perceived as anti-state. Okay, this is the introduction part. Then in the body part, I will substantiate 2 ways. The first part, I'll talk about why their perception is that way. In the second part, I'll talk about the significance. And in the conclusion, I'll try to give a way forward along with my opinion. So this is how I am going to structure my answer. Alright, so let us start off with the introduction. So in the introduction, you can define what are civil society organizations. So you can say civil society organizations occupy the space between the individual and the state, engaging in advocacy, that is voicing any concerns, advocacy, service delivery and accountability. So in the first paragraph, I have told about or defined about what are civil society organizations. So in the second part, I'll talk briefly about why they are perceived as anti-state. So you can say these organizations are perceived
as anti-state because they highlight rights violations, mobilize protests, and criticize governments. Put an hyphen. Example: Narmada Bachao Andolan or campaigns against Upsc. Campaigns against Upsc are often misunderstood as confrontation. Look at this. So in the first paragraph, I have defined what is CSO, and in the second paragraph, I have tried to link that perception. In the question, whatever context they are asking, I have tried to link that context to that particular concept of civil society organization. Okay, now let us jump to the body. Alright, so the first subheading will be why CSOs are often perceived as anti-state. Okay, so here first say voicing concerns. Here you can elaborate by telling protests against mining projects in Niamgiri Hills of Odisha positioned CSOs, that is civil society organizations, against state-led developmentalism, reinforcing the perception. Second one is transparency and accountability demands. Here you can say RTI activism or anti-corruption campaigns. Example: India against corruption 2011, close the bracket, exposes governance failures. However, such campaigns make CSOs appear to be combative. Okay, so this is the second one. The third one is funding. Here you can say some CSOs receive foreign funding. And these foreign funds become matters of suspicion for the government, which further reinforces the perception of CSOs being anti-state. So here I have proved why there is that perception of CSOs being anti-state. Now let us talk about the second part of the question. So now let us put the subheading as CSOs significant institutions or significant non-state actors. So here first one you can tell is democratic role. Here you can elaborate by telling, put an hyphen. Here you can elaborate by telling CSOs actualize Gandhian ideals of Grama Swaraj, and hence strengthen participatory democracy. Okay. The second one you can write is service delivery. In service delivery, you can say Seva empowers informal women workers. Informal women workers. Third one, you can say welfare support. Welfare support. Here you can say Pratham bridges learning gaps in education. Okay. Fourth one you can say is poverty reduction. Here you can say during COVID-19, CSOs played an important role in spreading awareness among the poor and also helped in food distribution among the poor. Okay. The fifth one is partnering with the government. Okay. Here you can say NGOs implement components of Poshan Abhiyan, Swachh Bharat and National Rural Livelihood Mission, showing a complementary and not confrontational role. Okay. So now in the first part we have spoken about why that perception is there, and in the second part we have spoken about the significance of CSOs. So the third part is very, very important. That is where they are asking, do you agree? So you should be very, very clear in voicing out your opinion. So look at this. According to me, CSOs are neither inherently anti-state, nor they are fully pro-state, but CSOs are pro-society. Okay. Next line or next paragraph you can say, when CSOs criticize government policies, they may appear anti-state, but in reality they function as democratic pillars of accountability. However, CSOs must always align their activism with constitutional morality. So in this way, I am trying to give a very balanced opinion and telling the importance of CSO, but that CSO have to keep their activism within the boundaries of constitutional morality. So this is how your opinion should always be voiced very, very clearly. That opinion should always reflect the maturity and depth of your understanding in that particular topic. So I hope you enjoyed this question, guys. Let us move on to the next one then. Alright guys, now let us start off with the 15 markers, and the question number of social justice and governance is question 15. So look at it. Let me first read it out. Question 15 is, what are the environmental pressure groups? Discuss their role in raising awareness, influencing policies and advocating environmental protection in India. Okay, so they have given the three dimensions that you have to address: raising awareness, influencing policies and advocating for environmental protection in India. Okay, here writing for 15 marks is a little challenging because you need to have a lot of examples to write, otherwise the answer becomes a little specific. I can understand that. So in the exam like conditions, if you students have written generic answer, a little bit generic, because you have run out of examples, that is completely fine. Don't worry about it. It's a little difficult to elaborate this particular answer for 15 marks. Alright, but anyways, let us see how we can do it. So let us first create the schematic. So in the schema, first I'm going to introduce. In the introduction, I'm going to talk about what are environmental pressure groups. This is the first thing that I'll do. Then I will talk one case study of how an environmental movement has helped bring reforms. So such case studies will actually help in value addition, especially in 15 markers. Okay, so this is how I would like to introduce. Then let us go to the body. In the body, obviously they have already given the 3 dimensions that you have to address. So first dimension is how environmental pressure group helps in raising awareness. That is one. The second is how environmental pressure groups will help in influencing policies. And the third is how environmental pressure groups helps in advocating environmental protection. Okay, so this is how you can address the body in 3 dimensions, whichever that they have given in the question itself. And finally conclude by talking about the significance of environmental pressure groups in environmental jurisprudence. Alright, so this is how I would like to structure my answer. So we have looked at the schematic. Let us jump right to the answer writing. So in the introduction, you can first define by telling that environmental pressure groups are organized civil society groups that seek to influence government policies and public opinions in matters of environmental protection. Okay, so this is what is the definition of environmental pressure groups. Okay, now let me just illustrate a case study. Okay, so in the next paragraph, let us give a case study. So you can talk about the case study of Plachimada movement in Kerala. Okay, you can elaborate this. Plachimada movement in Kerala. This was a grassroots movement by people of Plachimada against the Coca-Cola plant which depleted the groundwater and contaminated the groundwater, affecting the agricultural community. This campaign was spearheaded by an environmental pressure group led by Mahilamma, leading to the closure of the factory. Now see, this case study I had already created so that I can use in the exam. Just because I have asked about environmental pressure groups, I made sure that I added that keyword. Look at this. It was spearheaded by the environmental pressure group led by Mahilamma. Okay, so that keyword I added to make sure that it suits the context of the question that is being asked. That is the smartness that is needed when you're writing mains answers. Okay, so now you have given what is environmental pressure groups, you have given a case study. Now you can also add one more value addition, that is types of environmental pressure groups. Now why this is required is they have asked a separate question. Look at this. You are not implicitly writing what are environmental pressure groups. Because they have asked a separate question, you have to write a little bit more about the environmental pressure groups. So maybe after the introduction of what is environmental pressure groups, after telling about a case study, try to give some other context of environmental pressure groups so that one side of the sheet is filled up with what is environmental pressure groups. So I hope you understood how it follows. So when you come to types of pressure groups, the first one is issue-based NGOs. Okay, example is Center for Science and Environment that works for pollution control and climate action. Okay, so this is issue based NGO. The second one is grassroots movements. Grassroots movements. Again, here you can say, for example, Narmada Bachao Andolan. Narmada Bachao Andolan. So here you can say local communities. Local communities resist ecological harm. Resist ecological harm and hence act as pressure groups. Act as pressure groups themselves. Act as pressure groups themselves. That is the second one. The third one is research groups. The third one is research groups. Here you can say these groups are mainly concerned with scientific data and policy support. Scientific data and policy support. Example you can say is, one is TERI, the Energy and Resource Institute, TERI, and the next is LIFE, LIFE. This is Legal Initiative for Forest and Environment. Okay, Legal Initiative for Forest and Environment. So these are different types of environmental pressure groups. Okay, so now let us address the first part of the question, that is, how does environmental pressure group help in raising awareness? So give the heading, environmental pressure groups and raising awareness. Environmental pressure groups and raising awareness. Here you can say the first one is mass mobilization. Mass mobilization. Here you can say Chipko Andolan. Chipko Andolan helped spread awareness about the effects of deforestation. Spread awareness about the effect of deforestation. Okay. The second one you can say media campaign. Media campaign. Here you can say Center for Science and Environment's right to clean air. Right to clean air. Center of Science and Environment's right to clean air campaign shifted public's attention to the pollution in Delhi. Shifted the public's attention to the pollution in Delhi. The third one, what you can say is climate literacy. Climate literacy. You can say several youth-led campaigns. Youth-led campaigns such as Fridays for Future. Fridays for Future as pushed climate debates into mainstream. Climate debates into mainstream. Look at this. So 3 keywords. I use 3 keywords and I give 3 examples. This is how you have to write in social justice. Okay. So we are done with raising awareness. Let us go to the next one. The next is environmental pressure groups. Put an hyphen. Influencing policies. Influencing policies. So here you can write first one, in Bhopal gas tragedy. Bhopal gas tragedy, environmental groups such as Bhopal gas Pidit, Mahila Udyog Sanghatan, mobilized victims kept international attention alive and lobbied parliament, which led to the enactment of Environmental Protection Act 1986. Okay, so this is one. The second one you can talk about is Coastal Regulation Zone. Coastal Regulation Zone. Okay, CRZ. So here you can tell INTACH, INTACH. Okay, that is Indian National Trust for Art and Culture, Indian National Trust for Art and Culture pushed the government to regulate the construction and industrialization along our fragile coast. Okay, fragile, fragile coast. Okay, so these are the 2 points where I'm talking about influencing policies. All right, the last one, environmental pressure groups, put an hyphen, advocating environmental protection in India. All right, so here first I would like to talk about filing PILs. And when it comes to filing PILs, especially for environmental protection, you have to write his name. His name is known as the Green Advocate of India. He is MC Mehta, Mahesh Chandra Mehta. Okay, from 1980s to 2000s, his petitions helped control Ganga pollution, oleum leak case, Taj Mahal conservation, which eventually led to the expansion of Article 21 to include right to clean environment. Expansion of Article 21 to include right to clean environment. So this is the first one. The second I would like to talk about is watchdog role. Here I would like to talk about LIFE, that is Legal Initiative for Forest and Environment, which played an important role in exposing illegal mining in Ballari, which led to Supreme Court framing guidelines for stricter monitoring of mining leases. So in this way, we have addressed raising awareness, how environmental pressure groups help, influencing policies, how environmental pressure groups help, and advocating for environmental protection, how environmental pressure groups helps. Alright, so now let us conclude. So in the conclusion, you can say environmental pressure groups are pro-sustainability institutions and their collaboration with the judiciary, the government and the citizens is necessary to meet India's climate commitments and also to secure ecological justice. So this is how you would like to conclude, a forward looking one. Alright, so this is about the 15th question. So I hope you are writing with me and I hope you are understanding the language and the keywords to be used. Let us move on to the next question then. Alright guys, now let us move on to the 16th question. Let me first read it out. The 16th question is, inequality in the ownership pattern of resources is one of the major causes of poverty. Discuss in the context of paradox of poverty. Okay, obviously they have told what is the paradox of poverty. Paradox of poverty is basically there is economic growth happening, but there is widespread poverty also. Why is that widespread poverty happening? It's happening mainly because of the inequality in ownership or inequality
in access to resources. So that is why the paradox of poverty is happening. So overall, the question is straightforward. It is just asking you to assess the paradox of poverty. All you have to do is think of different domains. You can think of agriculture, you can think of industrialization, service sector, urban areas, rural areas. In every realms of economy, you can think of inequality. If you bring that inequality and show that on one side there is inequality and on the other side there is widespread growth, you are showing the paradox. So all you have to do is you have to show this paradox in different realms of economy and your answers will be done. So overall, a straightforward answer. Let us get on with it. First, let us create a schematic. So in the schema, first what I'll do, in the introduction, I'll try to tell what is paradox of poverty. Okay, then I will bring some Indian relevance to it. You cannot just directly jump off from there. So you have to bring some type of Indian relevance. So that is this. Then in the body, I will talk about how poverty is due to inequality of ownership. So this is the first part I am going to talk about in the body. The second part I am going to talk about is how to overcome inequality led poverty. How to overcome inequality led poverty. And finally, in the conclusion, I will finish by talking about redistributive justice and inclusive policies. Redistributive justice and inclusive policies. Again, redistributive justice, inclusive policies, these are all keywords that are used in social justice. You should be very, very thorough and strong when it comes to keywords. Alright, so now we are done with the schema. Let us start off with the introduction. So in the introduction, you can talk about paradox of poverty reflects resource-rich societies having widespread poverty due to inequitable distribution of ownership or resources or opportunities. Okay, so I have explained what is the meaning of paradox of poverty. Now bring the India relevance. Okay, in the second paragraph you can talk about the India relevance. So here you can say poverty in India is not merely a question of scarcity, but also inequality in access to ownership and resources such as capital, land, technology, markets, and opportunities, which leads to paradox of poverty amidst plenty. Okay, now I'll give one more data to substantiate this. According to Niti Aayog, India, despite being the fastest growing economy, multi-dimensional poverty still affects 11.3% of the population. Look at this. This is how I have explained what is paradox of poverty and brought Indian relevance. Now let us jump to the body of the answer. Alright, now let us put the subheading poverty due to inequality of ownership pattern. Okay, so here you can give the first one is paradox of poverty in agriculture. Okay, here I can write two subpoints. The first subpoint is agriculture constitutes 45% of India's workforce, but it contributes only 18% of India's GDP.
This reflects the widespread inequality in agricultural domain, though India is the fastest growing economy. This is the first point I want to make. The second paradox I want to again bring it to point is 85% of Indian farmers are small and marginal with less than 2 hectares of land holdings. However, 1% of large farmers hold more than 20% of total land holdings. So these are the 2 points under agriculture that I want to show the paradox of poverty. Okay. The second one is energy paradox. So here I can say India is the third largest producer of electricity according to IEA. Yet, according to Niti Aayog's SDG Index 2023, 13% of rural households report irregular electricity. Okay, so this is the second paradox. The third paradox, okay, the resource paradox, or in other words you call it as resource curse. We can elaborate here. Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh have the highest resources in the country, but also are the poorest states with poor human development indicators. Okay, for example, the poverty levels in Jharkhand is almost around 33%. Okay, so that is the substantiation. All right, the next one, the fourth one you can talk about is rural urban divide. So here you can say, according to Niti Aayog, rural poverty stands at around 19%, whereas urban poverty stands at around 5.5%. So there is a divide here. And even in urban areas, though urban areas are economic engines of our nation, there are over 65 million slum dwellers in our cities. This is according to 2011 census. There are even more today, but according to that census, there are over 65 million slum dwellers. So this is rural urban divide. All right, the fifth one is capital availability paradox. Now here see, MSMEs account for 1/3 of GDP and more than 40% of exports, but face credit constraints as most of the capital flows into corporate sector. Okay, so this is capital availability paradox. All right, the next one, the last one, very important, is sixth one is nutritional paradox. So here you can say India is a net food surplus region. However, India has the highest rates of women suffering from anemia, almost 57%, and India has the highest rate of around 35% of children under 5 who are stunted. Okay, this is the nutritional paradox. So in every realm of the economy, I can take and talk about the inequality. That itself becomes the paradox. That is all this answer is. So in the first part, we have addressed how this paradox of poverty works in India. In the second part, we should actually try to address how to overcome this paradox. So now give the subheading, how to overcome inequality-led poverty. Inequality-led poverty. Okay. The first one is land reforms. In this you can elaborate telling digitization of land records to reduce disputes and empower small landholders. Okay. Second one, women's land ownership. Here we can say only 13% of women have agricultural land, hence joint pattas in the name of both husband and wife must be extended to improve gender equity. Okay. Third one is role of developmental institutions. Okay, here you can say the initiatives such as National Rural Livelihood Mission has helped over 10 crore women across 91 lakh SHGs, reducing dependency on money lenders. Hence, such institutions must be promoted in other domains of economy such as farmer producer organizations in agriculture, cooperatives in financial inclusion and common service centers in skilling and awareness. So this is the third one. Now the fourth one is community property resources. Here you can say effective implementation of Forest Rights Act 2006 will help recognize the rights of tribes as well as forest dwellers. Okay, so this is the fourth point. So the last point is community property resources, recognizing the rights of tribes and forest dwellers according to the Forest Rights Act 2006. Okay, so this is how you can give the points. Finally, the conclusion. I'm running out of space here, so let me just write it here. So conclusion. So in conclusion, you can say poverty in India will decline if resources are not just created, but also distributed. Hence, redistributive justice and inclusive policies are the necessity if India is to solve the paradox of poverty.
if India has to solve the paradox of poverty. So I hope you understood how to bring the keywords and create a conclusion. So this completes the 16th question. Let us move on to the next and the last question of social justice and governance. Alright guys, now let us look at the 17th question. The 17th question is as follows. In contemporary development models, decision-making and problem-solving responsibilities are not located close to the source of information and execution, defeating the objectives of development. Critically evaluate. Okay, so basically they are asking you to criticize top-down approach and to tell what are the benefits of bottom-up approach, or what are the benefits of principle of subsidiarity. Principle of subsidiarity. So this is what the entire question is talking about. Okay, so let us now create the schema for this particular question. So in the schematic, in the introduction, I'll briefly speak about how contemporary models are inclined towards top-down approach and what is the problem with it. I'll very briefly talk about it. Then going to the body. In the body, I will create two parts. The first is why decision making away from the source of information defeats objective of development. Okay, so this is the first part in the body I'll try to address. The second part I'll try to address is the need for localized decision making. In other words, the need for bottom-up approach. Okay, so this is how our schematic of the structuring of the answer is going to be. All right, so let us proceed then. So in the introduction, we can start by telling that contemporary models rely on centralized planning and top-down execution, creating a gap between policy intent and grassroots outcomes. This defeats or undermines the objectives of inclusive and sustainable development. Look at this. So this is the introduction. Okay, then let us go to the next page and try to give the heading as why decision making away from source of information defeats the objectives of development. Okay, sir, should we write such a long subheading? It is good to write because I told you subheadings act as GPS for the examiner or the evaluator. So when the evaluator is reading the answer, the evaluator will be clearly knowing which part of the question you are addressing if the subheadings are very clear. Alright, so it is okay to write such long subheadings even if it is 2 lines. Alright, so this is the subheading. Now let us illustrate. The first point is mismatch between policy and realities. Here you can say program such as national health policy fails to reflect local disease burden. For example, metropolitan areas have high incidence of diabetes, whereas the tribal belts have high cases of malaria and Japanese encephalitis. Okay, next point you can say this leads to ineffective resource allocation, thus reducing
the objectives of development. Okay, so I hope you understood the first point. Let us go to the second one. The second one is weak accountability. Weak accountability. Here you can say centralized planning. Centralized planning leads to dilution of accountability as the implementers are not answerable to local communities. For example, several central schemes are implemented without consulting Grama Sabha, viewing the rural community as passive beneficiaries. Okay, so this is the second point. The third one is slower problem solving. Local issues require local and immediate solutions. However, centralized planning requires central level clearance of all resolutions, therefore delaying solutions and defeating the objectives of development. Okay, this is the third one. Fourth one is alienation. Here you can elaborate and say lack of participation creates distrust and even conflicts. Example, land acquisition for mining in Jharkhand led to protests when Grama Sabhas were bypassed. The last one is against constitutional morality. So here you can say that if problem solving is not localized, then participatory democracy is undermined, which violates the principles of 73rd Constitutional Amendment. Okay, so these are the 5 points that shows why when decision making is away from the source of information defeats the objectives of development. Now the next part is you have to talk about bottom up approach. So here you can give the heading as need for localized decision making. So here you will talk about, first let us define principle of subsidiarity. See, it's a 15 marker, that's why I'm adding extra points, otherwise I wouldn't have written so much of things. So principle of subsidiarity means that decisions should be taken at lowest possible level of authority, closest to the people, and the higher levels of government should intervene only when the issues cannot be managed locally. The issues cannot be managed locally. So I hope you understood what is principle of subsidiarity. It means nothing but bottom-up approach. Now, just give a flow chart. You can say, you can give a approach like this, bottom-up approach. Okay, and you can say it will always help in efficiency, responsiveness, participation, and accountability. Look at this. All right. Now give 2-3 examples of how bottom-up approach has been effective in developmental objectives. Okay. So now give the heading as case for localized decision making. I'll give 2 case studies, localized decision making. One is Kerala's People's Plan campaign 1996. This made decentralized planning successful by better resource allocation and increased accountability. Okay, so this is one case study. The second case study I can give you is aspirational district program of 2018. So aspirational district program 2018, you can elaborate here. District level teams adapted local solutions that led to improving indicators of health, sanitation, nutrition and education outcomes. Look at this, how I have elaborated for a 15 marker. Finally, let us conclude this answer. So in the conclusion, you can say that use the same keywords that they have used in the question. So basically you can talk by telling that development succeeds if decisions are taken where information, context and execution converge. Full stop. Thus, decentralized and participatory governance ensures responsiveness, inclusivity and accountability. Look at the keywords that I've used. Okay, so these are the ways how you have to use the keywords in social justice and governance answers. So this completes all the 6 questions. So we have written in detail every question from introduction to body to conclusion. We have created the schematic to understand how to structure the question, and we have also used the keywords to bring that language that are specific to social justice and governance. Alright guys, now my ending remarks in this social justice and governance is, one thing is, I am really proud of each and everyone who has written every question along with me. I appreciate their diligence and commitment, and believe me, that hard work is going to pay in the upcoming mains 2026. So I am proud of you, I applaud you, and I am really happy to see that you are so committed to this particular exam. Okay, with that, first thing, so I hope by the end of the session you understand what is keyword approach and how to use this keyword approach to write any answers in social justice and governance. Okay, now you can be proficient in the keywords approach only if you practice. So keep practicing a lot of answers by taking mock test. Okay, stop reading a lot of books. It doesn't really do you any good. Write a lot of tests. Yes, you have to make notes. That's the second thing that I'm coming towards. So you understood how to make notes for social justice and governance. So basically you have to take the thematics, and in the thematics you have to create programs, advantages, disadvantages, reports, facts, positives, negatives, and then examples and case studies.
case studies. Okay, so this is how you have to add, and for every thematic you will create keywords which you are going to do by writing test. Okay, finally you realize that your answers should be a collection of keywords plus examples plus facts. So if you can bring these three in your answers with proper structuring, then you will get really good marks. And I hope with this exercise of writing all the UPSC Mains 2025 questions, you have now got a knack to structure the answer. You have got the knack to write the introduction and conclusion. You have also got the knack to write the language of social justice and governance. If you can do that, if you can practice this, you will become unstoppable and you will get maximum score in this section of social justice and governance, and that I can promise. Alright guys, then I hope that you enjoyed this section of social justice and governance. Not only did you enjoy, but you have also been participant of this particular exercise, and I hope that you have a lot to take away from it. Nowhere in India have they done this exercise openly and for free. I am trying to do it so that my student community benefits and they excel in the upcoming Mains 2026. So I hope that you people are equipped, and I hope that you people are even more energetic for the coming videos, and you people will make sure that you are consistent. I am so happy for you. I am proud of you. But one request is, please like, share and subscribe these videos so that I am incentivized to do this on a regular basis. Thank you so much for all the love and support, guys. I hope social justice and governance is now in your fingertips. Let us go to the next section. Let us meet again then. Bye.